The following program is brought to you by the Internet Broadcasting Organization. Nothing stated by Steve Bartlett during the Fight Back with Steve show is intended to be legal advice, and appearing on the show does not create an attorney-client relationship with Steve Bartlett. Before taking legal action, it is advisable to consult with an attorney of your choice. The views and opinions expressed by the callers and guests of the Fight Back with Steve show are solely opinionated by those individuals and are not necessarily the expressions and viewpoints of Steve Bartlett or Talkwat Studios.
Hi, I'm Steve Bartlett, and welcome to Fight Back with Steve Bartlett. It's Monday night, 9 o'clock, so it's time to listen to me rant and rave for the next 30 minutes or so. Please call. Hopefully the numbers are being flashed on the screen right now as I speak. Hint, hint, Gary, so that you can give me your opinions and engage and talk with me, because a dialogue requires two people in order to engage together. So please give me a call. Last week, my friend the Walrus didn't call. I don't know why. I thought it was a great show even without his walrusness giving me a call. So if you're out there, Walrus, call tonight, or anyone else watching. First-time callers, please call. I'd love to talk to you about that. So to start the show tonight, I want to talk to you about Tony, Orlando, and Dawn, the trio of singers, the one guy and two girls who had a bunch of hit songs, well, not a bunch, a few hit songs in the early 70s. You don't remember them, do you, Gary? Okay.
I'm sorry, I fell asleep.
Never mind. Okay. Tony, Orlando, and Dawn were a trio of pop groups who had the song Knock 3 Times on the Ceiling, If You Want Me. But their biggest song they had was a song about a guy who gets released from jail, and he's got a girlfriend waiting for him at home, but he doesn't know if she's going to want to see him when he takes the bus ride back from jail. And what he tells her to do is to tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree. So if she wants him to come home, then he's going to come home. If there's no ribbon there, he realizes that because he's an old jailbird, he's not supposed to come home. But, and that was a big hit song, but throughout the years since then, the song has taken on another meaning. It's no longer considered about a guy who went to jail and when he gets out of prison is going home to his girlfriend. It became a song about veterans of wars coming home to their loved ones. And the song took on more meaning. And most people think that's what the song is about. It came out there in the 70s. People were coming home from the Vietnam War. A lot of people think the song is about soldiers coming home to their loved ones. But if you really listen to the words, it's about a guy who's getting out of jail. But, and that's when the whole yellow ribbon business started, at least as far as I know. Maybe it was around before that. But ever since then, yellow has become the color of respecting our troops. Yellow ribbons became the way that we show respect for our troops, that you get a bumper sticker and you say, respect our troops, and it's got a picture of a little yellow ribbon. I don't think anyone actually wraps them around trees. Well, maybe they do. I just don't pay attention. But, you know, that's what people do to show that they support their military. They buy a ribbon, costs them $1 or something, and they wear it, and it says, we support our troops. Or they get a bumper sticker and they put it on the back of their car, and it says, we support our troops. And next Monday is a 3-day weekend, and it's Memorial Day, and that is to honor those soldiers who gave their lives dying for our country. It's supposed to be a day of remorse and respect and remembrance, but basically what most people do is they just treat it as a 3-day weekend. They go to the beach, they flip burgers, they have their friends over, Yeah, it's not treated as a solemn occasion. It's just a 3-day weekend, the beginning of summer, Memorial Day. And that's to respect those comrades who died in battle. But for those who didn't die in battle, there's another holiday, and that's called Veterans Day. And I think that's in September that they celebrate that. And that's where we're supposed to honor those veterans who are still with us and show them respect. I think Veterans Day used to be Armistice Day, which was about the end of World War I, and they changed it over to Veterans Day. But that's supposed to be more of an upbeat day and not as melancholy as Memorial Day, because we can actually say thank you to those who have fought and defended our country. However, so that's what we do to celebrate our veterans. We wear ribbons, we get bumper stickers, and we have 3-day weekends. That's what we do for our veterans. That's what Americans do to show that we support our troops. And we feel really good about ourselves. We pat ourselves on the back and we call ourselves patriots because we actually spent the dollar and bought the yellow ribbon. And we buy a T-shirt, and the T-shirt says, "I support our troops." And we applaud at the hockey games when they have the veteran of the night. And we feel really proud of ourselves about the way we are with our veterans because they're such heroes. But despite all of these important activities that Americans engage in, the harsh reality is that we don't give a damn about our veterans. Our veterans are not treated with the respect that they deserve. Wearing a T-shirt saying "I support the troops" doesn't do a damn thing to help our troops. Okay? If you look at the people who are coming back home from Iraq and Afghanistan, about 44% of them are having difficulties, psychological or physical problems that they've endured over in the wars. Now, if you look at the casualty amounts of the soldiers over in Afghanistan and Iraq, there's not that many fatalities. Not as many people have died compared to wars such as Vietnam. Not nearly as many deaths, even though the war has been dragged on forever. However, that doesn't mean we haven't had casualties. There's still quite a bit of people who are injured, just that because of our medical care overseas, we're able to save a lot more lives. But people come back here who are missing limbs constantly. People come here who are burned and scarred, like the guy who won Dancing with the Stars a few years ago. But don't watch the show now, watch me instead. Or people, end up completely disabled or blind, or they lose their hearing, and all kinds of horrible physical things can happen to those soldiers. But even worse than that is what happens to the soldiers' psyche. What they used to call shell shock became battle fatigue, which is now called post-traumatic stress disorder. And so many of the people coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan are suffering the emotional scars of warfare. About 20% of the soldiers who are coming back from these two wars right now suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, which stops them from being able to integrate back into society, which stops these people from being able to, join their families and get a job and just have a normal life because of these serious emotional, psychological problems that they're experiencing. Another 20% have suffered at least a low level of brain damage being over in these two wars. I don't know what the cause of these things are. People don't talk about it. Why so many of our soldiers are coming back and psychologically damaged. But that's a serious, serious problem that a damn bumper sticker isn't going to help. The unemployment rate for soldiers coming back from these two wars is about 30%. These are our heroes, our nation's best, the envy of the world, and they can't get a job. The rate of unemployment for our heroes is higher than our national unemployment level was during the Great Depression. That is a national embarrassment. It's a goddamn disgrace. And not only that, but our veterans are supposed to be taken care of by our government. And right now, they're not. There's currently a scandal going on, and this is a real scandal. Not like the Benghazi crap, not like the stuff involving the IRS, not involving all the other stuff that they're having hearings upon hearings in Washington about, Fast and Furious, and all these pseudo scandals out there to make Obama and Hillary Clinton look bad. This is really scandalous, and what I'm talking about is the scandal caused by the Veterans Administration problems, the VA scandal. Right now, there's already been a resignation of the Undersecretary Robert Petzel. He's already resigned. I'm not sure. I don't think he's resigned yet, but they're calling for the head now of the only Secretary of the Veterans Administration that we've had under Obama, which is Eric Shinseki. They're asking for him to resign as well due to the scandals that's which actually been going on. Now, I'm not an expert in the military. I'm not an expert in the scandals which has been going on. I'm sure that there's another show that's on that's broadcast. It's called it's Al's show. What's the name of the show, Gary? Al Young Show.
Yeah, it's just called the Al Young Show.
It's called the Al Young Show.
Yep,
if you
there
really
you go.
care about the military, if you care about our veterans, watch the Al Young Show. I don't know what day it broadcasts, but if you look on the Talk Wad Studios website, I'm sure you can find out about it. This is a guy who knows all about veterans affairs, but I just felt that this is such an important issue that I should talk about it, especially on my last show before the Memorial Day weekend. So here's the problem which is going on. The problem is that American soldiers are dying, not in Iraq, not in Afghanistan, but here in the United States because they're not getting the health care that they are entitled to. They deserve this treatment. They're legally entitled to this treatment, and they're not getting it. Instead, they're being forced to wait. They're being forced to wait in order to get treated at the veterans hospitals around the United States. And as a result of this, studies have shown that hundreds of soldiers have died. They've died waiting in line in order to get treated. And this is going on under my buddy Obama. Okay? Now, I normally am protecting him. I'm normally trashing the Republicans. But on this issue, what Obama is doing is not enough. And not only that, not only is there a problem going on, but they lied about it. There's been lies, there's been cover-ups, there's been false waiting lists that have been actually done, and it's inexcusable. It is inexcusable that we should have the audacity to treat our veterans who got hurt and injured and put their bodies and lives on the line for us, for our country, and then we don't take care of them? That is an embarrassment. It makes me embarrassed to be an American. And I apologize to you on behalf of our country if you happen to be one of those veterans who isn't getting the help that you're entitled to because of bureaucracy and red tape and whatnot. But who's really to blame? I mean, the blame is Obama's. Obama is the president. He's in charge of the Veterans Administration. He's the boss, and he should be held accountable for it. And I'm going to hold his ass to the fire as a result of that. But what really happened? Why is there a problem with the VA? Why is this problem going on? It goes a lot longer. It goes back a lot further. It's not because of Obama. Obama hasn't fixed the problem, but he's not the person who caused the problem. Well, let's talk about veterans. Veterans, the first time the America started to try to do something to help veterans was after the War of 1812. That's when the Congress passed the first law to try to help veterans. But under President Herbert Hoover in 1930, that's when the the Veterans Administration was actually set up. So Herbert Hoover, probably the worst president we've ever had. Well, Buchanan is probably the worst president we ever had, but he's definitely the top three. If you're going to go on Family Feud and say who's the worst president of all time, you're going to go number one answer Buchanan, number two answer Herbert Hoover, number three answer George W. Bush. But he's definitely in the top three, the holy trinity of lousy presidents. But one good thing he did is he set up the VA to try to help our veterans back in 1930. Unfortunately, the VA was run terribly. There was a lot of scandal. There was a lot of not properly taking care of our veterans, and it got progressively worse until the mid-'80s, when it was absolutely terrible. The way our veterans were being treated was being done terribly by the mid-1980s. They actually had studies and statistics in 1985 which showed that that the rates of care, that the doctors themselves, the surgeons, were incompetent, that people were dying on the operation table in the 1980s, that if you get the same surgery in a regular hospital, you're going to make it through. If you're at a VA hospital, you're going to end up dying on the table. It was beyond bad. So Congress tried to fix that, and they passed some requirements because everything was done hush-hush. They kept their own statistics. They didn't share those statistics with anybody. And Congress actually required the Veterans Administration to show disclosure and data so they could actually help make improvements in the VA system. And that happened under Reagan. And also under Reagan, the Veterans Administration became a cabinet post back in 1988, the year after I moved to Florida. The veterans became part of the cabinet, which was actually good for veterans as well. But then things started really picking up for helping veterans in the 1990s under Bill Clinton. Under Bill Clinton, he picked this guy who was a doctor named Dr. Kaiser, I think is his name. And what Dr. Kaiser did is he was in charge of reforming the Veterans Administration. And what he decided to do was do this huge reform. And the first thing he did was he decentralized the Veterans Administration, as opposed to having just one centralized headquarters in the United States. He set up 32 different networks around the country, and each with their own director, each one of them with specific goals, and each of them completely accountable for the treatment and care that went on in their actual districts. Another thing that he did was he assigned the patients to teams, and what these teams would actually do is these teams would coordinate care for each of the patients as well. They also changed the funding. The way the funding would work previously was it was based upon historical figures, but instead they decided we're going to actually say how many patients are actually treated at each facility in the country, and we will actually fund it based upon the amount of patients who are actually going there as opposed to past historical trends. So all of these things were being done to try to reform the Veterans Administration system, and it was very successful. The New England Journal of Medicine, the most prominent name in medicine, actually did a study, and they determined that in 2000 that there were major improvements in the care that was being done by the Veterans Administration. So things were improving. They started a program called VISTA, which is this high-tech system where they would put bands on their patients with codes, and then the nurses would have wands, and the wands would scan the codes, and those codes would before they gave medication. So it became more high-tech as well. And the result was, at least according to the New England Journal, was that thousands of lives have been saved because of the huge improvements that were done under Bill Clinton, following the improvements that were done by Ronald Reagan. Okay, things improved so much that by 2004, the RAND Corporation did a study, and the RAND Corporation determined that the Veterans Administration actually outperformed all areas of health care in the United States. Okay? So here is the RAND Corporation saying that the Veterans Administration wasn't just giving, okay care, it was giving better care than what the non-veterans were actually receiving. That's come a long way since the mid-'80s when the care was substandard. So during that 20-year period, we went from absolutely horrible health care for our military veterans to better care for our veterans than the non-veterans were receiving. This was huge. But what happened? Why is that care now so bad that they have to lie about it and cover it up? Why is the care so bad now in the 21st century when things are supposed to be better? Well, and here's an example. And you can't say, oh, it's Obama, because you look at what it was like under George W. Bush. We had the Walter Reed scandal, formerly the most prestigious hospital of the Veterans Administration group of hospitals. There was that scandal, and it's the same stuff: substandard care, people waiting in line without getting treatment, just horrible, horrible conditions. And those things were cleaned up. So, what changed? What is the thing that changed that caused the care that we were giving our veterans that changed from 2004 until a few years later went to substandard care? And the problem was, as far as I can tell, was that the people who claimed to care about the veterans were doing the one thing that is the worst thing that we can do to support our troops. Okay? The number one way we can support our troops is to not send them in harm's way needlessly. And what we did as a nation under George W. Bush and under his evil vice president was that we sent these troops to die for nothing in Iraq. We engaged in a horrific, lengthy war for no reason. And then we simultaneously had this mission in Afghanistan that was a disaster from day one. Engaged in 2 wars without any real strategy as to determine what a win is, and without any plan to rebuild what the country would be like after the war was over, and even more importantly, without a plan as to what were we going to do with our American heroes once they came home. And as a result of that, there's been about 2 million troops coming home who are now in need of help, who are in need of health care, who are injured, who are disabled, who are injured by these horrific wars. And what happened is a flood occurred, a flood of soldiers who were coming home in need of health care, and we did not have the resources to take care of it. Before 2004, everything was going fine. We had all the hospitals set up. We had a manageable amount of veterans. But because of these 2 horrific wars, our system became overloaded. We did not have enough manpower. We did not have enough ability to take care of these soldiers. I don't know whether or not the secretary should resign of the Veterans Administration. He's a 4-star general, and he was opposed to the Iraq War to begin with. When the Iraq War was going on, he criticized the plan, the strategy of the war by saying that we did not have enough soldiers over there, that the military mission would require a lot more infrastructure. We needed more soldiers in order to carry out the mission. And that same philosophy is what's going on right now with the Veterans Administration. We don't have enough resources available for our veterans. They don't have enough hospitals. They don't have it. The reason why they're backlogged, the reason why they have such a long waiting list is because Congress hasn't adequately funded the Veterans Administration to the extent that they need funding. Okay? We had 2 million people coming home and we're bewildered that there's not enough ability to take care of these folks. Okay? Now, they want to say that, well, this is proof that government health care doesn't work because of the Veterans Administration scandal. But you know what? The problem is, one of the problems is that the Veterans Administration has these special designated hospitals for where veterans actually get to go. And because this is where they get to go, limited resources, 2 million soldiers, of course they're having a waiting line because they're trying to get into these limited amount of hospitals. Okay? If a single payer system was adopted in our country, similar to what's going on in Canada, okay, then what would happen is our veterans would basically be given Medicare. Okay, so that a veteran coming back doesn't have to go to a VA hospital. They can go to any hospital. They can go to any hospital. They can go to any doctor. They can go anywhere they want. The only difference is they don't have to pay to use the hospital. They get to pull out their card saying that they're a veteran. They get their Medicare, and then they can be taken care of. Okay, that's what would happen if we had a single payer system. They would be able to get taken care of. Okay? And that's what we need to do. We need to take care of our veterans and we need to take care of our non-veterans in our country. What we need is comprehensive, single-payer health care. Obamacare is a step in the right direction, but it's not far enough. Let's cut out the middleman, let's cut out the insurance industry, and let's just give health care to everyone. Okay? The other thing is, forget the games about budgeting and cutting spending and the United States is spending too much and all that when you're caring about our veterans. When the veterans need money for health care, you don't ask the question, how much? You just write the check. When there's a disabled veteran who needs an operation, you don't say, well, can our country handle that deficit? You write the check. You take care of our own. The way the Marines say you don't leave a fellow brother behind on the battles, on the battleground, you don't leave anyone behind. Well, when they come home, we don't leave our soldiers behind. And if that means we're going to hike taxes down the road on you, then we hike taxes on you down the road. If that means we have to cut some other spending, whether it's the military budget or some other social program, that's what you do. But you take care of the veterans first. We owe it to them. They defended us and protected us. We have to protect them. So, I want you to fight back by contacting your local congressman and say, do not consider health care for veterans to be a luxury that we can only afford if the deficit isn't too high. You demand that it always be funded so that they never, ever are understaffed and that they have the same resources available to them to help the veteran, especially the disabled ones. The same way we're able to write a blank check when we go and send them overseas, we should be willing to write a blank check once they come home and they need help. So, thanks for watching the show tonight, and remember that when faced with something that's bothering you, that's something you know is wrong in your gut, when you're faced with injustice, don't be like those people who just jump on the bandwagon and go with the majority if you know they're wrong. Don't be the type of person who just watches football and puts your head in the sand like an ostrich and doesn't care and ignores the problem. What you do is you do whatever it takes to address the problem. Not everyone is going to be able to run for Congress. Not everyone is going to have the time to march in the street and do protests. Not everyone's going to write their congressman, but at least you can read, at least you can talk, at least you can have an open mind and learn how to fight back. Thank you very much. I'll see you next week.
This program was brought to you by the Internet Broadcasting Organization, setting the standard for new media broadcasting.